So we're gonna have a conversation, and it's called Finding Balance and the Importance of Support Group. Este negocio, la manera más, como hemos escuchado, más práctica, sencilla y útil de avanzar es encontrando un grupo de gente que te apoye con tu emprendimiento. And today we're gonna have 4 women here who are friends, who support each other, who build a community, and that gives you leverage to elevate your business. So this is very important. I have dear friends like Titina Pensini, who's always, because I don't ask, she calls me, it's like, I want to write an article on your latest collection. And that support translates into business at the end. So thank you. That's what I love you. Okay, so girls, are they ready? Let's have a chat. Un aplauso, Taliana Vargas, modelo colombiana, former Miss Colombia. Brenda Díaz de la Vega, Estefanía Lacayo, Stacy Caldwell, powerful and beautiful women. Go ahead.
Hello?
Hola, hola.
We're going to do this in
Hello.
Spanglish. Vamos a hacer esto en español, inglés. Is there anyone in the audience that does not speak Spanish? We should do it in English because Stacey, yeah. So yes, and I do see people.
I can. Might be dicey.
So this is a conversation. I'm not moderating this panel. This is a conversation between 4 friends, 4 women that I go after for advice all the time. I think us, all of here in the audience, we're all entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship can be very, very lonely, very, very hard. As a mom, it's super, super hard. You're a mom, you're a wife, you're hustling. I don't have my family in the U.S. It's all of us in the audience, you guys can relate. So we've spoken about this support system, surrounding yourself with women that really, when you're feeling so lonely, when you're feeling so sad, when you stop believing in yourself, lift you up, right? Yeah. So I reached out to Stacy, I don't know, maybe a few weeks ago, and I was like, we've never spoken about this at Laughs, and I think it's super important because mostly all of us here in the audience, we're women. We're all struggling something behind the scenes. We all have a problem. We all have a big challenge happening behind the scenes, and I think it's been super beautiful and inspiring to hear all these beautiful conversations of women building their businesses, scaling their businesses, selling their businesses, about retail. But there's a human component of an entrepreneur, right? Of what's behind the scenes, like what's happening, how we're struggling nonstop. So that's really a conversation. So thank you, girls, because I wouldn't be able to do anything that Sammy and I do if I wouldn't have the support system of you girls. So thank you.
Oh. Thank you. And Estefania and I have an interesting story, and Brenda, many of us, everyone here, we lived through COVID together. And in our cases, many of us lived in New York City. I worked in New York for 18 years. I worked in corporate New York for 15. I published a book called Where's Carl? Had my baby, the company sold, and I was like, what am I gonna do? And there are many times, many of you are starting your own businesses now. You might have businesses that are about to scale, but it can be very lonely. And there are a lot of questions and decisions that you have to make for yourself. And I think in our cases specifically, and those of us that went through COVID together, we all moved. Like, I lived in New York City, and I live in El Paso, Texas, and Estefania moved to Miami, and so many of you are no longer located in these big metropolitan centers. So I'm doing strategy consulting for brands like Another Tomorrow, Farm Rio, Homegirls, that are huge, but I'm very isolated. And I'll say it makes me teary-eyed because the women that we were in New York with, and those relationships have made my business possible. And I think truly, the advice I'd give entrepreneurs specifically to take away from this is, really maintain those relationships. Like the people that I worked in my first job, like my first assistant is the person that brought me another tomorrow. Like you never know what's going to open the next door, and maintaining those relationships. And it's so hard when you're alone, and the digital piece is so empty sometimes that you have to find time for those connections. And no one's too small for you, and no one's too big. And especially the young people, making the time and the effort to show up here and do the in-person piece to make these friendships that you have to also nurture, because these are the women that are going to help you solve these problems, right?
Cali, tú sos nuestra primera dama de Cali, Colombia.
I know that there's so many questions about it, what I have been through these couple of weeks. I don't know if English is the correct
Cali, tú lo vas a hablar en
language
español.
to speak to my community woman, you know, heart to heart about what I just went through as a woman in politics. It's it's been crazy, ladies. Right now, see? Bueno, so I'm gonna move to Spanish because I think, yeah, what I just said, heart by heart with my woman that really wants to know what just happened. Yo ayer me prometí que no iba a volver a decir que a mí no me gustaba la política, porque nadie me va a creer. Más nunca, ya, nadie me va a creer eso. Hoy mi esposo es el alcalde electo de la ciudad de Cali, una de las ciudades más importantes de Colombia, y acabamos con la política tradicional que llevaba 30 años sumergidos en esta ciudad por una manera, por decirle sí al sueño del esposo, realmente. Si me preguntan a mí, jamás pensé que iba a terminar metida o sumergida en una campaña política, pero Alejandro siempre me lo ha dicho. Taliana, las grandes transformaciones sociales están en lo público. Sí, muy linda tu fundación hace 10 años, transformando mujeres con temas de empleabilidad, maravilloso. ¿Cuántas personas has tocado? 4.000 familias. Hoy tenemos una responsabilidad de 4 millones de personas.
Wow.
Entonces, vale la pena por completo pararse enfrente del abismo cuando uno no tiene ni idea qué va a pasar, cuando no tienes fuerzas, cuando ya estás agotada de meterte en un tema tan complejo como es la política pública en nuestros países latinoamericanos, pero que estás al lado de tu esposo por un sí con un fin muy grande y un propósito muy grande. Pero ¿qué lo abarca uno? El miedo, la angustia, ¿qué van a decir de mí? Llevo 16 años cuidando una imagen pública, y qué línea debo tomar, qué tan delgada es esa línea que me pueda arrebatarlo todo por el sueño de otro, ¿no? Y yo creo que como mujer siempre nos estamos preguntando eso al lado del marido. Pero cuando le decimos sí a una familia, que para mí es el pilar de la sociedad y que es hoy lo que necesitan no solamente los políticos en el mundo, sino el ejemplo que queremos, y de alguna manera estoy segura que en Cali ganamos porque me paré al lado de Alejandro y hablamos desde la familia, la esperanza que podemos dar, los valores que hacen falta como sociedad y que estamos listos de trabajar en equipo para una comunidad que tanto lo necesita. Entonces, sé que todas se preguntan cómo se logró. Se logró con una mujer que me dio la mano. Mi prima ama el tema político y me conocía perfectamente. Mi prima hermana me conoce perfectamente y me dijo, Tali, tú tienes un tema social espectacular que lo haces de lado, porque también hablar de las cosas que uno hace por el otro es lo más harto del mundo, pero tenemos que hablar a la cámara, mirando a la cámara y pedir que voten, pedir que se acabe lo que está pasando y pedir la confianza. Y yo decía, no, eso no. Y poco a poco, por medio de las redes sociales, revolucionamos las redes por hablar con la verdad, por hablar con el corazón. y por hablar mirando a los ojos a la gente. Si ven, digamos, en temas estratégicos de comunicaciones y de era digital, nosotros en moda hacemos todo como muy artístico y el plano que es blurry, que no se vea nada como tan concreto. Y aquí era al revés, era solo mi carita en un solo plano, mirando directo a la cámara y diciendo, miren, esto es lo que está pasando y esta es la realidad que podemos tener. Y esa es una invitación que también le hago a toda esta industria de la moda tan importante, de que todas tenemos una voz trascendental y que desde su esencia, sus estilos, háblenle al público de lo que quieran saber, háblenle al público de todo lo que han aprendido en un panel como los que han visto en Laft. Hablen directo a la cámara y conéctense con su comunidad, que eso es lo más importante, y estamos aquí realmente todos solamente, el gran fin, servir. Y servir lejos del ego, porque cuando entre más cargos tengas, el ego más cerca está. Stacey, I'm talking about
Yo hablo
success
español. No
and ego.
Yo entiendo
That
todo.
they can't be together. If they're together, you're wrong, you know?
I understand, don't worry.
So you won't have peace in your life. So it doesn't matter what you are, first lady of a city or a major or the most important CEO of one of the most important platforms of Latin America. If you have success and ego together, they're gonna fight your whole time, and it's not worth it. And you have to think less about you and more about others.
100%.
And we have that responsibility. It doesn't matter if we work in fashion. We have to think about that as the main focus.
I'm going to step in. Bravo,
Bravo.
bravo.
So nice.
I think something that we've all talked about as we were preparing or kind of brainstorming for this panel is motherhood and what a humbling experience motherhood is and the impact that that can have on somebody's career. And, you know, all of us here are mothers. You know, I've been a corporate working. Tú no.
Maduro.
¿No se oye?
Sí, ya.
Sí,
Mejor.
Perdón. So I had been working in corporate for, you know, over 20 years. And then I had a baby, I moved to Miami, and all of a sudden, you know, I'm not this super executive working, you know, person, fashion person. I'm a mom, you know, before anything else. And I think it's okay that at a certain moment in your career, you have to redefine what your meaning of success is, and you have to redefine what your priorities are. I think it's in every career, I think, and I had to accept that as well. You know, I say it now, but it took me a while to actually accept that, and to accept that priorities shift and change depending on where you are in life, and that's okay. And right now, my priority is my son, and even though I don't want to completely ignore my career, it's definitely taken a step back because, you know, I have a 3-year-old, and a 3-year-old needs its mom. So I think, you know, in your case, you took on this position to support your husband, and you talk about how ego, you know, competes with success. I think motherhood is another example of how you can't have ego. Motherhood is the most humbling experience I've ever lived through. And I think we can all say the same. Anyone here who's a mom can say the same. And I think as women, not that it's a disadvantage, but it's definitely kind of unfair because when you're a mom, you really do have to put everything else aside, you know, and you know, some people decide to keep going to the office and keep working 9 to 5, and that's totally okay. But many of us don't, you know, we want to stay at home and we want to see them, you know, at home, and that's also okay. And I think that's something that's not talked about a lot. And I think it's fair to say that we can have it all, but we cannot have it all at the same time. And that's something that I've really learned in the past 3 years.
I agree. I mean, I think also as women, we're usually the ones that we're the hardest with ourselves. I mean, I don't know why. It's like an ancestral baggage that we're so hard with ourselves. And it's so important to surround with women. Like, I come to you girls all the time with an insecurity, with a challenge, because we have them. We all have insecurities and challenges. And you might think like, wow, I've grown this platform, but I have insecurities all the time. And I feel super sad that my daughter's birthday was yesterday, and I wasn't there. I couldn't be there for her. But if I wouldn't have this support system of this friend, you couldn't do it. You couldn't do it. So I think when we talk about motherhood, let's talk about one thing about motherhood, which is the component of like, it's really hard for us as women to be, because
Let's don't find the balance during a day. You
Correct.
know,
not
why
even
do
a
we have to
career,
do
but in a
everything
day.
in a day? No, let's just one day we figure it out and we spend the whole day or half the day with the kids. And then the other day we work as crazy. And the balance is when you look back and you're like, okay, I have handled everything, but not in a day, women, please, come on.
sometimes you're gonna be a good wife, you'll be a better wife. Sometimes you're gonna be a better entrepreneur. Sometimes you're gonna be a better mom. Sometimes you're gonna be a better friend. We'll talk about friendship after. For me, it's been a really hard year when it comes to friendship. My company has grown a lot this past year, and a lot of my closest friends started reaching out to me. And they were like, wow, we feel like you've outgrown us, and we feel like you don't have time for us. And it was a huge eye-opener for me because I was like, oh my God, I've been so consumed. I'm working so hard because I'm working like 18 hours a day. And if anybody knows me and follows her podcast, I wake up at 4 a.m. And so it's really, I mean, it's a very lonely life. But it was a big eye-opener. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to take a step back. And we'll talk about balance. Like, how do you balance that? Because yes, we want to be a mom. Yes, we want to be an entrepreneur. Yes, we want to I want to grow this company even bigger. I want to be a wife. I do want it. I want it all. And I think we can. We just have to find a support system of people that,
I think one topic that you're all touching on is not being afraid to ask for help in your own community and with your friends. I have the opportunity to look into so many businesses that are run by amazing females all over the world, and many of them are a month away from failure. Everyone has this idea that they have to present, and I think women, we put this upon ourselves, that we have to, even with your closest friends, I see it happen all the time where you have to put on this front of perfection and really making it seem like everything's okay and protecting your resources. But for you entrepreneurs that are here today, I would say that anything that you can share to support the women in your community, and we all have individual talents, and if you can hire your weaknesses and you can tap into the women around you that are good at other things, but also ask yourself, what can I give back to the women in my community? And just one example I'll show you, and I spoke about another tomorrow, and many of you saw Vanessa on stage yesterday, but she's a sustainability expert. She's a stepmom to 3 children. She came from finance. That company preaches a lot about sustainability, but she once a month, and it's on her LinkedIn if you want to tap into it, she offers office hours for mainly women. I mean, anyone can reach out, but she offers office hours for people to just like come to her and ask questions and try to figure it out. But I think in these moments where even though we're all so busy, you can think about what you can offer to the women around you and how you can make yourself accessible through your resources, through your factories. Like, everyone's a little competitive and they protect their resources, but there isn't any reason we shouldn't be sharing them and helping each other as women. None of these businesses are the same. If I give you my factory, they're not going to leave me. Like, I just encourage us as women to help each other and to speak about our vulnerabilities and ask, like, what can I offer the community? Because I really do think in the limited time that we have, what you put out will come back to you tenfold, especially in business. And fashion is so challenging specifically.
Something that resonated with me yesterday was during the Pitch to Laughs winners conversation, and Clarissa said something that I had never really thought about, or maybe had never heard somebody say out loud. It's like, I was already in all these wonderful stores, and did I really want to be in many more stores? Like, what does success mean to you? And I think that's something that I've asked myself a lot during this transition into being a mom, being a full-time mom, and kind of, having a step back from my career, is what does success mean, And I think it's also fair to say that success can change during our lives, during our careers. To me, I know that success right now is being able to spend time with my son as I work on independent stuff, and not be tied to anything. But I love what she said, because I do think we don't ask ourselves enough, what do I really want? What does success mean to me? do I really want to be in 50 stores or just 10 stores? But I want to be happy as I do it, you know? So if I have this awesome corporate job and I'm the CMO of this top luxury brand, yeah, that's amazing, but then I'm not going to see my family at all. So is that really what I want? And, you know, to question ourselves and say, are my goals still aligned with my current priorities? And I think it's fair to ask ourselves that and to reevaluate at different stages of our career, you know, how that's shifted.
Do you all have any tools that would be helpful to the audience in terms of how you prioritize your day? You have such a huge schedule. How do you prioritize it? What works?
For me, prayer, it's like one of the most important things on my daily routine. It's like food, you know, like spending a day without eating, it's almost impossible, you know.
O
For
sea,
me,
si
it's the
ustedes siguen
guy
las redes,
that I need, you know,
los
that
guys del
time.
rosario, que empezás
Yeah.
siempre con un rosario.
Yeah, it's like if I don't pray, it's like not eating during the day. You know, it's like my seventh sense. You know, it's the one that guides me where to go, what doors should I open in that day, what should I say, what should I spend my energy into it. You know, it's banal or is it worth it? It helps me to remind myself all the time. Am I thinking too much about me or should I do more about others? You know, it's the time that I have to the real balance in my daily routine. So if I don't start with that, like I'm screwed. It's like my time to figure it out everything and then I have my tools to solve every tiny problem during the day.
I'll tell you my 2 cents. I heard it in a panel yesterday. I started eliminating from my life any type of people and distraction that were putting me down. And you start feeling that. You feel that from the bottom of your heart, who genuinely cares about you, who supports you, who champions you. So I started just eliminating bluntly all that distraction because you know what? That was pulling me down. Another tool is, you know, I mean, for me, I wake up at 4 in the morning because I have ADD, I have dyslexia. It's a lot harder for me than for many of you to be organized. So like, I have to be on top of it. So for being on top of it, I need those 3 extra hours, right? Of no distraction because I get distracted in a matter of a second because my brain is already thinking of a million other things that I want to do for the business. So, but hold on, I lost my thought, of course. Obviously, I lost my thought.
So
I
you
know.
wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning
Ya
and
entendí. No. Una cosa importantísima.
what's your tool?
You know
for
what it
your
is?
daily routine?
I get invited to so many events.
Yeah.
I lived in New York. We lived in New York, I don't know, over 20 years. I did all the whole fashion weeks in London, in Milan, in Paris. I don't need any of that. I'm 43. I don't need to go to a show anymore. I don't need to go to a fashion party and do a small talk. That's been done. Like, I want to be in that time where I'm by myself and I have time for myself. I want to be with my kids. I want to be with my husband. I want to be with my friends, hopefully in Key Biscayne, because I don't want to leave the island. And I want to surround myself with people that lift me up, you know? So like as an entrepreneur, like just focus, like just, you don't need to be everywhere. Like I say that I have JOMO, joy of missing out. Like I definitely have JOMO. And I think, you know, you should put priorities. Like you don't have to be everywhere. You don't have to go to everything. Like for me, that's something that helps me as an entrepreneur to balance as little bit as possible because the word balance, I don't even know how much you can actually balance, but it works for me.
I wish I had a tool set, but I really don't.
That's not true.
Every day, the day changes. I think with a 3-year-old, it's hard to plan. I just know that between 9 to 3 when he's in school is when I can get my stuff done. So I have to be super, super efficient to make sure that between that window of 9 to 3, I'm like on it, you know? So some days that can mean I get to go to play tennis with my friend, you know, because that's like my therapy. It's where I kind of, you know, But some other days is I'm just sitting in front of a computer for 6 hours and getting as much work out as I can. So I think my toolkit is flexibility, is making sure I'm flexible, I can roll with the punches, and getting as much done as I can in that school time window, and then after bedtime at from 8 onwards.
For me, I have 2 boys that are 6 and 8, and I have 8 to 10 clients that I meet with weekly. And it took me a long time to find the balance of the rhythm. I've had my own business for 8 years now, and I would highly recommend creating a structure in your schedule. Every business is different. Not all of you are consultants, but you all have 8 to 10 things a day you have to manage and get on your schedule. And I really try to honor the schedule that I create with my clients within the parameters I have. Like, I know I have every day from 9 to 2 to dedicate to work 500%, but if I meet with Susana, I know we meet on Wednesdays at 1 o'clock, and I know I meet with homegirls on these, I really try to honor it for them and for me, and I found that if I define the structure in advance in my schedule, it creates a lot less stress. Like trying to figure out and navigate and balance, your digital time, which I think is a whole other conversation, and really saving that for later in the day and do what you have to do to catch up on it. But I think creating a structure for you that you hold yourself to and you honor within reason, for me, that alleviates a lot of stress in trying to manage the day and understanding the expectations that I have to meet.
En tu caso, Tali,
For me, every day it's completely different. So I can't manage and I can't balance my days. So that's why I start by having an hour praying, and for myself, a time, where I found the guide that I need for every day. The peace that I need, the response that I need to figure it out. What am I gonna do and how am I gonna balance with my kids? I have 2. 4 and 3. They're also babies. Yes, they are 2 babies plus all this. But that's my reality, and I'm going back home to figure it out. How am I gonna be first lady, wife, mother, social entrepreneur, plus a friend? I think that friendships are so important in our lives, and it's the time for not thinking about you. It's just making the other person happy. It's like, let's do whatever you need, and that helps you to stop stressing out about what you're needing during that day. It's about giving. It's about the others. It's about stop thinking about you, and that moment you're going to relieve about all the stress and all the responsibilities you have during that day.
And it's important not to always talk about work. I think that when we're in career, we talk a lot about work, and I think it's so important to save some friends and some time, and for their issues too. Because I think when we have as entrepreneurs, we have a lot that we want to discuss, but making space for the people with you to share to, I think, is so important.
Just listen other people's life, It's not always about you. It's like, I love hanging out with other women and just listen to them, listen
also
to them.
is finding priorities, like giving priorities to people that you connect with. Like, for example, like, I can't be more grateful that you're here. O sea, para ti, Taliana, ahorita tu marido acaba de ser electo de alcalde, están ocupadísimos, y para mí, para Sammy, estamos súper agradecidas que tomaste el tiempo para venir y estar aquí con nosotros, pero obvio, a ti como actriz, creadora de contenido, social entrepreneur, ahora primera dama, te llegan cuántas invitaciones por día. Entonces yo creo que también como emprendedores un takeaway que les daría es el aprender a escoger. Es aprender a escoger a qué vas a decir que sí, a dónde vas a ir. Yo he aprendido, me tomó mucho tiempo aprender a decir, ¿sabes? No, porque por mucho que sos una marca súper de lujo y linda y qué bello el evento, y no tengo tiempo para ir porque, no tengo tiempo para ir porque tengo otras prioridades, pero sí para mis amigas, sí, you should be there for them, Entonces,
Pues yo creo en Labs, yo lo he visto crecer y para mí este espacio es único. Este espacio no se puede tomar for granted. Aquí estamos reunidas mujeres emprendedoras, capaces, que tenemos mucho que compartirnos la una a la otra, que nos podemos no solamente apoyar a nuestro interés o nuestra plataforma, sino elevar Latinoamérica ante el mundo. Y está en nuestras manos y solamente hay un espacio como este, que es Labs, donde uno se da ese chance. Entonces aquí estamos para dialogar la una con la otra, aquí estamos para decirnos, aquí yo estoy también para conocerlas, qué está pasando en Latinoamérica para yo realmente también poder tomar los eventos culturales en Cali y transformarlos y volvernos no solamente nacional, sino internacional. Yo creo en esta plataforma desde el día 1 y todos estamos aquí porque todos creemos en ella. Y es muy importante que sepamos la dimensión de lo que este espacio, nosotras como mujeres, significa. Significa apoyarnos para que el mundo entero volque los ojos a Latinoamérica y poder elevar lo que hoy nosotras hacemos ante el mundo. Entonces es un espacio que yo agradezco muchísimo y siempre estaré aquí firme, no solamente para Estefanía y Samantha, sino para Latinoamérica.
Yo creo que we should open it up to, creo que una o dos preguntas que quieran hacer. O si alguien, creo que ahí hay una pregunta. Si ¿Le pueden dar un micrófono, por favor?
Puede ser en español o también en inglés.
Español está bien.
Ok. Pues como Steph sabe, tengo 21 años, creo que soy de las más chiquitas que está aquí en Labs. Tengo un Young Baby que es mi marca, llevo 2 años con ella, pero ahorita que, o sea, dicen todo esto ustedes y ya tienen más experiencia que yo y dicen lo de las amigas, dicen como what to choose and not what to go, what's better, what makes me feel prouder with my kids, with my family. What's like a really, really good advice after all what you have been doing and saying that you can really share de cómo ponerte a ti primero, más como mujer, más como, sí, soy la mamá de alguien, pero yo qué hago mejor para mí y qué es lo que a mí me hace ser mejor persona como yo soy en cuanto a mi tiempo, en cuanto a mi salud, en cuanto a todo eso, porque siento que es algo que es muy importante y sí me gustaría saber ustedes qué hacen, porque yo me encuentro en un punto ahorita que digo, no sé qué hacer, o sea, no sé si ir a este evento, si commit con esta persona, entonces siento que ustedes son muy importantes y me podrían decir un muy buen consejo sobre eso.
¿Qué ganas estando en todos los eventos sociales de que todos te acepten? Y si tu salud mental no está bien, y si tú no te sientes a gusto y tranquila contigo, y si cada momento del que lo estás haciendo es solamente por mantener a todos contentos y no a ti, no estás ganando absolutamente nada. Por eso ahorita dije lo de el éxito realmente tiene que estar muy alejado del ego. Aquí hay unas marcas extraordinarias, creativas, maravillosas, pero tienes que encontrar la paz dentro de todo el proceso, porque si no te estás acabando a ti misma y a nadie más al final le va a importar tu vida, tu salud. Entonces tú te tienes que priorizar. Como dijo ahorita, para mí mi hora de oración es trascendental. O sea, pueden estar llorando los niños afuera en el cuarto hasta que yo no entro en mi proceso de meditación y oración para tener ese séptimo sentido vivo que me guíe, estar tranquila para tomar buenas decisiones y no corriendo y no entrar en el juego de la ansiedad, ni el estrés, que nos los hacen pintar como que ay, qué cool estar estresada, estoy muy ocupada. Eso realmente solamente te está alterando el sistema nervioso y te está acabando a ti misma. Entonces realmente buscar esos momentos donde tú decir, me siento cómodo yendo, no es un tema de afanes, porque se trata de trabajar, y aquí todas trabajamos muchísimo, se trata de tú sentirte a gusto con cada decisión que tú tomes primero por ti y no por los demás.
Hi, my name is Katia. I wanted to say thank you very much for such an insightful and I think a very important thing in today's world with social media, friendships, COVID, just loneliness, I think is a very big thing. My question doesn't really have to do with that, but as a young entrepreneur, fashion stylist living in New York City, as well as a brand manager and just a very creative human, I would say, for someone my age, starting out in the industry, I found it kind of overwhelming for myself to try to get my feet in all the doors as much as possible, especially I know you ladies, some of you have lived in New York City, the energy there is a little overwhelming sometimes and you're like, oh my God, am I missing out? How do I gotta go to everything. I guess my question is just in general, as a creative person, you want to say how much yes is too much yes, where you start to spread yourself really thin, and how do you choose, again, as someone who hasn't been in the industry for a long time, what is going to be valuable to you? Or if, as a stylist, I find myself saying yes to free projects a lot, which I'm happy to do, but at the same time, it's like, okay, when is the value going to come, or how am I going to be taken seriously? Just how do you prevent yourself from getting spread too thin? And I know, trust your gut and everything, but overall, I think this industry just moves really fast. And FOMO, I want to be JOMO, and I definitely am FOMO. So
I can jump in from the New York perspective. I moved to New York when I was 22, single, did everything in the world, and we left 2 kids, barely time to do anything. I think with a city like New York, it's really quality over quantity. And you will learn very quickly the people that resonate with you and that you can build a quality relationship, because you can go to a million events in New York and drink champagne, don't drink champagne, but if you're not making real connections, and sometimes it does take repetition to get there, but it's much better to take a coffee with someone, I would say, than go to the party aspect. And I think squeezing in coffees and doing those quality things. Sometimes you meet someone at yoga. Sometimes, you make a friend that you're starting off together, but that friend in 10 years is going to be your go-to for everything. So I just say pace yourself and really pay attention to the quality of what you're getting out of each experience. And it's day by day. You have to say yes to just one thing.
When I was launching my edition 1 in 2009, and she was the head of sales director of Takun, and I went and I pitched her to do a collaboration, which we did, and Vogue USA did a beautiful whole story on it, and it was beautiful. But I didn't know her, we immediately connected, and I immediately connected with her as a human, other than her just being a sales director for this big company, and we kept in touch, through the years. I think it's super important that when you get that human contact with someone, like when I connected with Brenda and with Aliana, it's nurturing those relationships. When you connect with someone, nurture that a lot, versus I believe in quality versus quantity. That is super important.
I will say too, I think back to my first job in New York City, and I worked at IFA USA, which was if there had only been reality TV back then, it was a townhouse of 50 people. And we were in our 20s, we were really young, but they are the people I go to now. And it's don't undermine the people that you're meeting in these early stages, because truly, I have someone in finance. They're all different strengths than I have, but I never knew in my 20s that would be who I rely on now at 42 years old for the help. And I think when it comes to your question about how much is too much in freestyling and all of that, Julie Gilhart once on a panel I heard said you have one, maybe twice, and you have to cut it off. You're happy. I think it's nice to help people. And then Martha Graf too in Dominican Republic, she's really good about saying she charges her friends and she's not ashamed of it. So you know your worth, and I think even with friends you can help, and then at some point you have to, set the boundary and, the cost.
One more question, there you go.
Hi, thank you. One thing I really struggle with a lot is the balance, especially when it comes to making business decisions and determining next steps in your career, all of that, balancing gut instinct and intuition and research and logic and making the right educated decision. Any thoughts or experiences with that and when to draw the line?
I think your gut is really your best instinct. I would say sometimes, I mean, we all question ourselves, but I think our intuition and your gut instinct is usually the right answer. But don't be afraid to ask. Like, ask around. And I still call my colleagues. I mean, my clients, we talk through so many questions, and even self-doubt. Like, I have it, we all have it. And
I mean,
sometimes you
the
just need
CEO of AP yesterday, said she had she had a coach to help her with some questions. So I think at every level, we have that self-doubt.
I think the one thing we didn't touch on today that we've heard through the week is the importance of mentors. And don't be afraid to ask. Like, everyone will have a coffee, and you should have a coffee with someone else to help them. But set up those few people that you can ask. And if it's not someone you know, but you have a specific question that you're not trusting your gut, just reach out. Like, find the person and ask for a coffee.
Don't be scared. Like, I mean, I reach out to people all the time. That I get more no's than yes on a daily basis, and I mean, I will keep harassing them until I get a yes. But my point is, like, don't be scared. Like, people want to genuinely give their time, and I think when you start growing as an entrepreneur, like, it becomes more of I feel like a duty, like, that people want to give your time. Like, for me, like, it's super, super important to give a few hours of the week to someone that I don't know. Because if I can just help one person with something, and I feel like that's how I feel like when I go ask for help too. So I think just don't be scared to ask.
And the problems get bigger. I think that's one misconception, especially in the fashion industry. It's hard when you start, and when you're managing a bigger business, the challenges just get harder, and you need the help even more. Yeah.
There's one question there. How do you find mentors?
In spaces like this,
Yeah.
you reach someone that you really admire, and you just start talking and just find the person and find with the person that you feel comfortable with, and just ask. It's all about reaching out.
You guys also have a huge advantage that we didn't have when we were starting our
Social
careers, is
media.
that you have social media. And there is no other more direct way to reach out to any single person in the world than through social media. Now, you can or cannot get a response, but most of the times you have their email also on their bio. You have an email, you have a contact button, you have the DM on Instagram. So don't be afraid to reach out on social media. Even we use it, to reach out to people, contacts that we need sometimes. So don't be afraid to use social media to get that network, to find those mentors.
Find that mentor, like, not because they're famous. Like, that's a big mistake that people do. They think that your mentor should be someone famous. No, absolutely not. A mentor could be your friend. It could be your cousin. It could be an old teacher. It could be anyone. I mean, I have multiple mentors for different things in my life, because there's so many things that I don't know, and I want to surround myself by people that know them more than I do. So I think, yes, social media is good, but I think sometimes social media loses that human contact because everything has been filtered.
Or you get
And
stuck in, like, that you're not the
it's
friend,
like,
and
for
you're in
me,
that, like,
actually,
weird
I don't
file.
like the social media component
When you're not
because
friends yet.
it looks fake. I like connecting to people. I like feeling the energy of someone. When I feel the energy of someone, I know that I can connect as a human, and I'm like, okay, I really want to, like, find a way how to invite her for a coffee, or invite him for a coffee, and, like, begin a relationship. Because I feel like social media is great to find out of people, but that human energy, you don't have it there.
The other thing I would encourage you, and I wish everyone did this more, find women that are doing what you're doing, that are in a very similar stage and similar type of business. Meet once a month. Get 3 friends together. You can meet on Zoom if you have to. If you can meet in person, better. But I've always said, like, why aren't we doing this? Like, just get together in the fashion industry or in media or in a creative field and just share resources and talk about your problems, because you might be trying to figure something out and she was working on the same thing this week, or she figured out your packaging solution or your factory. You know, there's so many things that someone in your immediate network is dealing with at the same time.
Yeah. Y para no más preguntas, pero para que se lleven algo, no tengan, dejemos las inseguridades al lado y pongámonos en una situación vulnerable cuando necesita ayuda de algo. Todos siempre necesitamos ayuda de algo, porque así no hacemos, los errores nos van a costar menos dinero. Entonces es muy importante dejar el ego al lado y ir a pedir ayuda cuando la necesitas. Yo creo que ese sería mi último consejo. Gracias.
Gracias.
Thank you.